Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Kilger, and this is the Feed and Grain Podcast. Today's podcast guest is Brett Burkhart, certified occupational safety specialist with kuSafe. kuSafe is a wearable technology company that specializes in workplace safety. How he lists it in the interview is digital PPE is a good way to think about it. We are going to talk about their product, just why wearable technology is so cool when it comes to safety, and what wearable technology's future might be in the workplace. If you have a guest or topic idea for the podcast, let me know. We have a button on the Feed and Grain podcast page that will connect you directly to me. So reach out anytime and let us know how we're doing, or if you have any ideas or good guests that you'd like us to have on. Without further delay, thank you so much for talking to me today, Brett. How are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here in central Iowa. Really enjoying the weather finally coming around at the right season, finally getting the seasons in order and just enjoying all the outdoor stuff.
Same here. We're your neighbors next door in Wisconsin, so we're finally getting some of that nice weather as well. After a long, wet, cold spring, it's nice.
Yes, good to hear.
Excellent. So, Brett, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? How did you what's your background? How did you get into this industry? How did you get into selling safety products?
Sure. Yeah. Well, as you'd imagine, not directly. It's a little indirect path there, but went to school for architecture at Iowa State. And then through my time in school, started a side business doing web and application development, software development, ended up creating a company that merged together with Gabriel Glenn, who's our CEO of kuSafe. So we were business partners before in this software development company. And then he left to start this idea because his dad was a safety leader over about 1,000 people. And he'd kind of really put together this idea that we can use the types of technologies we were building for other people to build something to help people in the safety world like his dad. And we had just maintained talking and just realized that we really enjoy working together. I saw an opportunity, as he did, for me to be able to apply some of the things that I've learned to help other people, to help move kuSafe forward. So it was an exciting opportunity to work with him and some other familiar faces, but ultimately just love establishing relationships and finding ways to make every employee's workday better, safer, and use technology in an interesting way to help solve those kind of problems.
Well, yeah, that's the dream, right? Everyone going home safe at night. That's the goal always is. So it's great that you guys are kind of using the technology to upgrade, because you guys do manufacturing kind of across the board, right? But to kind of make that kind of feel a little safer than it is, because, well, it hasn't always been. So it's nice to see you guys do that. Can you tell me a little more about the kuSafe system? What exactly does it do? To anyone not clear who's listening, it's wearable technology. So it's a little bit different than some of the other safety systems you might have seen in play before.
So we have a guy that works with us. His name is Sean. I don't know if he planned this. I don't know if this was intentional, but he cleverly described this to somebody as digital PPE, which I thought was a really interesting way to frame that, because it helps connect something that we know, two different things that we know, into one thing we've never seen put together before. So if I had to summarize what we're doing with our wearable technology, it's individualizing safety. So if you're imagining that immediate environment around each individual employee, what are they experiencing environmentally? What are they experiencing from the physical nature of the work that they're doing? And giving safety leaders and management the opportunity to identify where amongst our people and where within our facilities are there risks or are there opportunities, and how do we use leading indicator data to really get specific on where we should focus efforts. So when they're having employees utilize our technology, it's a passively gathering this information. There's nothing that an employee has to do. It's not an additional task for them or maintenance thing for them to have to worry about. They can simply put this armband on with the device that we've created and go about their day as they always would. But during that, it's sensing that environment around them. You're in an area that has elevated air quality issues. You're in an area right now that has elevated potential for heat stress, heat illness, and not necessarily requiring the employee to do anything about it, but sending notifications when those environments exist so that safety leaders, supervisors can go in real time and look at that environment, get an understanding of what's going on, have the conversations that result in being able to make positive changes, both environmentally and with the work people are doing. So that, yeah, like you said, ultimately our goal is to send people home safely every single day. And we all probably can think of a story, hopefully not something directly, but people we know that really probably could have gone home safer or healthier or at all, fortunately, in some cases, and using technology not to react to the next time it happens, but to help that first person not to have to go through that experience.
Yeah, that's great. So it must have quite a few sensors in there if it's kind of detecting all those ambient conditions, right? What all does it detect?
Sure. That is one of the things that has really been a differentiator for us, is that it's not just an ergonomic thing. It's not just an air quality thing, or not just a sound dosage thing. It's a lot of things. And what we're trying to help, and what we are helping people do, is see that whole story. What's the whole picture? So when we're looking at environmentals, we're looking at air quality, CO2, TVOCs. We're looking at, it's got a full dosimeter on board. So we're looking at sound across 7 different octaves, and looking at light levels, looking at temperature, humidity, air pressure, a lot of different things that we would basically summarize as saying the same stuff that industrial hygienists look at. We're not trying to replace them. Industrial hygienists are really talented people that serve a really great purpose. What we're trying to do is give, again, the leading indicator data that says this area is worthy of a deeper dive. This is where you should spend some time trying to understand, spend some focus, have some conversation. And you can see the patterns and trends over time, that in this area of the facility, there's a pattern, there's a cycle to how the environmentals behave and the environment people are working in. There's a pattern to the physical nature of the work people are doing. So in addition to environmentals, we're also looking at potentially hazardous levels of motion. So there's a 3-axis accelerometer inside this, looking at motion in all 3 axes, looking for force coupled with motion. So where are people doing motions with enough force that over time that could be a cumulative trauma type of injury. So a musculoskeletal issue, things like torn shoulders, pulled backs, things like that. And how do we see that happen? And then in conjunction with that, it's also looking at, because it's an accelerometer, slips, trips, and falls. So it can tell a safety leader in real time, hey, Stephen just had a slip. He's in the packaging area. Here's what I know about all of the environmentals that were around him at the time that happened. So sometimes we see, a slip is not just a slip. It's not an isolated thing. Oftentimes it could be a slip happened because humidity was elevated. So that the whole picture is not just the motion, it's also the environmentals. When this happened, what kind of environment were they in when it happened? And is there a pattern or a frequency to the ways that these things are happening, so that we can make some changes, make some adjustments, and improve the environment and reduce the likelihood that this happens?
I mean, all that sounds great. And being a person who's been in quite a few grain elevators and feed manufacturing, like there are a lot of different areas, and you can't assume you test one area for dust quality or air quality and then the rest of the place is the same, because they're all separated by big slabs of concrete on different floors, and things can be really different. So
that's right.
It makes sense to me. This sounds like a great product for our industry. How do you feel it would fit for the grain handling and feed manufacturing industry? I mean, must be okay, because you did do a presentation about it at this year's Jeeps Exchange.
Yeah, and we do have grain elevators and processing clients as well. So that's ultimately what led us to be involved in the Jeeps conference, because we had seen successes already with people in those industries. You went right to manufacturing, that was the origin of the idea of how we would apply. What we didn't anticipate was all the other ways people would find creative uses for what we're doing. So we didn't necessarily set out to be a grain processing solution, but it totally works. And we've seen great responses and some incredible insights as far as, you look at a job, on a property, a grain processing property, and you've got 7, 8, 10 different buildings, and people are wandering to and from throughout the day. Their environment is indoors, it's outdoors. It's the seasonality changes it dramatically, especially in the Midwest. So how do we know? We can't possibly say that, well, I've looked at this area and this area is fine. Yeah, but they were doing a lot of things in other areas throughout the day, or in between these two areas as they were getting to and from places. So it's not just the area, it's the individual. What is the individual experiencing? When you think about harvest time comes around, I grew up on a farm, so I'm familiar with being, hauling things to town, and you're alongside loud equipment, you're alongside or in loud spaces and experiences you're going through. But what does that accumulate to in the course of a day? So when you look at sound dosage and the leading indicators we can deliver there, we're able to give safety leaders, supervisors, any number of people that a company would determine they want to notify, a heads up indicator that says, hey, Stephen's at 90% of his sound dosage, his allowable levels for the day. So that's not saying you're over, that's saying you're at 90%, which means there's still time to do something. And it may just be, I need to run out and confirm he's got the right level of hearing protection on. I need to, reinforce, hey, this is why we're asking for that, because you probably don't even realize how much sound you're being exposed to, because it's not one loud event. This is a cumulative thing. So over the course of the day, and maybe this was different last week, we didn't have nearly the activity that we did last week. But this week, you've got a lot of things going on. You're working in areas you don't usually work in, spending more time in this area versus that area. And you really don't have a good gauge of how much you're being exposed to. And then certainly as you're hearing, if it has incurred any damage, your ability to determine if when you're in a louder environment decreases. So you may think it's not all that loud, but to somebody who doesn't have a little bit of hearing damage, they would certainly feel like it is. So just using data, an objective view of the environment that you're in to say, this is what the data says you're actually being exposed to. And it's not just for the space. This is for you specifically. So I'm going to make sure that we're doing the right thing for each of our people.
Yeah. And number one, it's for the safety of the people, but also it's got to help with insurance. And no one wants a workman's comp claim that could be avoided because,
right.
We just talked about spring, right? But summer's coming up and grain elevators and feed facilities get hot, really hot. So just knowing how long and what temperature your employee's been exposed to things, I'm guessing as someone who's almost passed out from like heat exhaustion myself, like it's... Right. As a person, you don't necessarily know that, but it's the equipment knows how long you've been exposed, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, especially with the season coming up right now as it's getting warmer and as OSHA is talking more about the heat illness and how are you monitoring for that? It's created a lot of new conversations in a great way that people are really now interested in. How do I know for sure that this is not pushing somebody to the limits? How do I know for sure that I can reinforce why we ask people to take breaks or, why we rotate jobs, and just the recognition that pushing through is not always the right answer. Sometimes that's going to result in a worse outcome. So we do partner with a lot of different workers' comp insurers just through relationships we've built over time. And there's a big interest in being able to say, what kind of proactive actions are you taking that could reduce the likelihood of this resulting in a claim? And through our web-based dashboard, as these different things happen, near misses happen, notifications of someone getting close to a limit happens, you're seeing the actions companies can take to prevent that and helping them to put some ROI to that. Play that out for a second if you didn't have a notification. Play it out if you didn't see a pattern or a trend and it did result in somebody being injured or worse. What would that have done? And being able to put some sort of ROI on being able to take action ahead of time with leading indicators.
Well, even things like with modern technology comes more record keeping, and every agency, OSHA wants more record keeping. Everyone wants more record keeping. And this seems like a great, great place to kind of automatically generate it and be able to see those trends without really impacting people's day-to-day lives very much.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because that is something we recognize. We spent 2.5 or 3 years just in that research, development, prototyping, testing, confirming. Are we able to provide the level of accurate information in the kind of timely basis with this technology in a way that's scalable, affordable, that kind of magic combination of things? We spent a lot of time there. And as we talked to safety leaders and we asked them, where are your limitations? Documentation was actually a big one. It wasn't always in implementing change. It wasn't always in, having the right conversations. It was, I can't have enough of the conversations because I get so caught up with documenting that I'd never have time to move into the proactive. So we recognize that documentation, reporting, that kind of thing has to be something that is done almost for the safety leader so that they're not spending their time trying to get through and make sense of all this information. I think about if I take my car to the mechanic and he's, it's making a rattling noise and he spits out this huge, multi-sheet thing of all these data codes and things, and I'm supposed to look at that and make sense of it and know how to fix it. I don't think so. Like you almost have to be a trained data scientist in order to make sense of some of this. So it's the software that we use, that we've created, I should say, that safety leaders can use that makes sense of that for them so that they can look at it and say, how do I actually take action on it to improve it? I don't want to spend all my time trying to understand it or comb through it or build my reports. I just want to know, what should I do about it once I know it's happening? So we take data and insights that are being gathered all the time in real time, providing notifications, but also a really robust reporting side of things so that they can look at this dashboard for just a few minutes a day and then spend the rest of their time out there working with people, making change, making impact, following up on how things are going, understanding where the biggest risks are, and getting people's input and perspective and buy-in on how to make things better. So the dashboard really does a great job, and our software development and design team has worked really closely, taking a lot of feedback from safety leaders on what is it you would want to see to help you to make those kind of positive changes, and designed our dashboard in a way that really makes the important things stand out and makes things very clear and actionable.
Like you said, I mean, it gives those safety guys or even mill managers the time to go check on that guy to make sure he has ear protection in, because you can see that. You have time to do that kind of thing where you wouldn't before. That's great. This next question is a little pie in the sky, but what would you say MakeYouSafe's goal is overall?
Yeah, our goal at MakeYouSafe is really, we derive an awful lot of joy out of the number of people that we're able to help avoid the incidences, the accidents that would have happened at work, but ultimately affect their family. So what we try to help our customers celebrate is looking at those positive changes that you've made and put it on a human scale, put it in that perspective. That's not just an employee, and that's not just a role within your facility. That's a person with a family, and there are positive impacts that you can do at work that have huge implications on them as a family. So when we talk about the reporting and we look at the data that comes through, the only reason we really use that ROI on there, I mean, you have to put a dollar amount on it in some way just to kind of know that the changes you're making are more than paying for themselves. But we also try to look at and help find those incidents that says, play that out a different way. How might that have happened if you didn't know about it ahead of time? And what would that have felt like, look like? And being able to celebrate those things that says this technology just helped somebody go home to their family the way that they showed up today. And that feels really, really good. So the more that we can see those success stories and we celebrate those, and we have our second annual users conference coming up this September, those are the kind of things that we ask people to bring with them to the table, because we don't see them all either. This is not about us monitoring somebody else's stuff. This is about providing a tool that helps them have better relationships with their employees and amongst the people that they work with, so that they can have that kind of trust built and they can make the positive impacts, but then also make sure those things get shared back so that employees understand, well, that's why we're using this technology. We're not just using it to benefit something that the company has as an objective. We're using it because they care about me going home the way that I came in today. And that feels really, really good. And it's not an extra burden on the employee. It's not monitoring and micromanaging people. It's about gathering information that says we as an employer are providing a safe place for employees to work, and the work we're asking them to do is safe for them to do. And we can feel good about that, and we can reinforce the things that we're doing to make positive changes so that people feel good about working here and they can continue to do the job they like to do.
I mean, that's a great feeling for everyone, right? No one wants that day where someone doesn't go home safe. No one wants to have to make that phone call. No one wants to have to do any of that stuff. And as the podcast listeners can't see it, but you have a MakeYouSafe on right now. It is basically a small, like 2-inch by 1-inch box on a strap.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. We used to, sometimes we say like a matchbox, but people don't use matchboxes a whole lot anymore. It's very small, very lightweight. The biggest compliment I think we get is people accidentally forget to take it off. That's a great thing, because one of the things, there's always a stigma with wearables of, is it going to be comfortable? Is it going to be cumbersome? And when we hear over and over again that people accidentally wore it home, or they wore it to the restaurant for lunch they went out to, and somebody goes, hey, what do you have on your arm there? Oh, I didn't realize I still had it on. I kind of forgot about it. That's actually the greatest compliment, that it's that comfortable and out of the way and not inhibiting in any way, that it's not impeding people's ability to do their job or the comfort level they have while doing their job. It's fully adjustable, very comfort fitting, non-slip grip on this nylon expandable band. So there's a lot of things we've done to take the employee's comfort into account, but it is just a small little device that slips into an armband. They wear it on their upper arm. That's always a question as well, as can you wear it somewhere else? For the way that we spent, thousands of hours working on the software development, how these sensors gather information, how we've calibrated it, how we help safety leaders to have accurate information. We've trained this for the way that motion and environmentals are picked up in this upper arm location. It's also out of the way. It's not potentially covered up by You think about somebody wearing it on their belt. If they had a shirt untucked, well, then you're not getting the right light levels. You're not getting the right sound levels. It's being muffled. You're not getting the same air quality that they're breathing. So we want to be within 18 inches of their head. And so this is an important place to keep it. But the other feature I've not mentioned yet is another reason why we have it on the upper arm. And there's a button in the middle of this device. It's the only piece that an employee actually interacts with, because our device does not provide any kind of haptic feedback or beeping or buzzing or flashing lights to the employee. It's not about asking the employee to discern what's right or wrong about everything around them. That's something that the reporting can help with, notifications can help with. But the one piece an employee can interact with is this button in the middle. And this is for leaving a voice memo. So what we learned in all of our time with safety leaders was they don't get nearly the number of near misses that they know are out there. They get such a small fraction of those. And when we talk to employees, what we found was it's often with good intention. They just typically forget, or I couldn't stop what I was doing, or I was new and didn't realize we were supposed to fill out a form for that. I didn't know where the forms were for that. I wasn't sure who to talk to. But most often it was just, I forgot, I intended to, but I forgot to. And so we said, how do we remove the friction in that process so that employees can say something when they see something without having to stop what they're doing? And this button in the middle, they can press and hold and leave up to a 15-second voice memo. So let's say I'm walking from, I'm working in a processing building. I've got a lot of different things going on, a lot of different processes. I'm in one corner and I am, I'm packaging up, containers into boxes and I'm getting them on pallets and things. That's my job. But as I'm walking across the facility, I see that the forklift looks like maybe it's leaking something. It doesn't usually have this puddle of something underneath of it. I don't use the forklift. I don't know who to tell about it. I'm not sure whose responsibility it is, but I know it doesn't look right and doesn't seem like it should be that way. So all I have to do as an employee is I can press and hold this button and leave up to a 15-second voice memo. And all I can say is, hey, over by the packaging area, the forklift appears like it's leaking something. It needs to be looked at, I think. That's it. So in the next 20 seconds or so, because everything that we're doing is real-time relayed, that memo is going to go to whoever has been designated to receive those safety managers. Maybe it's a supervisor of a certain group of people that I fall into. So my supervisor would receive that, and they can both listen to the audio recording of me saying this, but it also text transcribes it. So I may be in a meeting, I may be in a loud spot as a supervisor, and I can't hear the audio piece, but I can read it and say, is this urgent or is this a suggestion somebody had? And I can get this on to somebody else like maintenance to go take a look at that item. So all we're asking our employees to do is just, all you got to do is just, if you see something that's not quite right, or that could be better, just share that. Let us figure out what needs to be done about it. That's not your responsibility. We're just asking you to help us be the eyes and ears from the front lines, because you know your job better than anybody else does. And if something's not right, or it could be better, we want you to apply that expertise and just let us know.
I've talked to safety directors too before, and that is one of the key problems, right? Is getting employees to engage and participate with these small things like filling out a report or leaving a memo or something like that. And so the easier, the better. So you sold me. I'm ready. I'm Joe Schmo, elevator owner. I'm ready to implement MakeYouSafe. What do I do? How does the rollout go?
Sure. We try to make sure that we're taking all of the heavy lifting. So we don't put a lot of things back on our customer. We try to make sure we're doing all of that. Every time that we go to bring a new customer on board, we start by assigning an account manager on our team that's going to get to know them very, very well. They're going to understand what are the goals that the company is working toward, what are the challenges that they've had and they're trying to overcome or understand, and get to know the types of roles, the types of work that are done, and what's important to them, so that we can really not make this something that people are doing in addition to what they're already trying to do, but utilize this technology as the means by which they accomplish the goals they're aiming for and the challenges they're trying to overcome. So if we can understand that and tie that together and make sure that we're helping them to get the reporting set up to show how this is helping with those things, that makes everything smoother. So we really start off by assigning an account manager, start that relationship off by getting to know them very well. We identify, the best couple of sites to start with, different locations to install. We get a few things up front too. Your floor plan, the list of employees that will be able to utilize this, and who needs access to this dashboard, so that really when we come out, it's a simple putting a few screws in the wall, hanging this, what we call the base station, essentially the kiosk, the docking station, hang that on the wall and plug it in. It already knows how to connect to the network. It already has all the employees in the system. They can start using it immediately. So it's really only a few hours to get set up and running. And the entire dashboard is accessible to them right away. And because it's web-based, there's no software to install, nothing for a customer's IT team to have to maintain or take on. We take care of maintaining all that stuff. So it's really not a burden on anybody's internal team to have to take on an extra project or dedicate someone to understanding the ins and outs of a hardware system. We take care of all that for them so that they can spend, again, their time working with the people, taking the insights that they're getting, taking the data and the reporting that shows them what they're really trying to accomplish, and spend their time implementing, making positive changes, and not spend their time trying to understand another software system or how to maintain and operate a hardware that they're new to. So it's really about getting them to be actionable just as soon as possible.
Excellent. And you've mentioned a few times employee responses too, but do employees respond pretty well to the system? Imagine once you explain what it is and what it's for, I mean, I would hope that people would be happy to participate.
Sure. Yeah. I would say I've been into a lot of different facilities and a lot of different industries, and it's the same 5 questions every time. It's just the human response to wearable technology because it is a little bit on the newer end of things. However, there are certain wearable technologies people have already gotten comfortable with on a personal level, like my Apple Watch here. I immediately was curious, what information is it gathering? Who can see it? What do I have control over it? And when people have those kind of questions, it's a very natural thing, but communication and transparency is always the answer. And I think that's true for most change that people go through. So our account managers that we assign to be dedicated to our clients, they also are very, very good about the structured onboarding process that we have so that we can help create that change management in a very smooth way. And we can help them facilitate the communications, the information to share. When we come out and do an install to get somebody set up, we come out and do it. We're not just going to mail it to somebody and expect them to do it. We'll come out and do it, but we also stand alongside the safety leaders. And we talk about the information that is collected. The information is not collected. Nothing that's HIPAA related. It's not a constant tracking idea. The only time location is ever used is when someone has experienced a high force motion on their body, or when one of their environmentals is not within healthy tolerances. That's when, and the location is really not down to the inch. It's take the floor plan of their facility and we map it out as they talk about it. So when someone says, hey, this is an incident that happened in building 2, everyone knows what you're talking about. If somebody says packaging, everyone knows what we're talking about. So we're looking for departmentally, location-wise, where are things happening. And so when we talk to people, employees, about the degree of specificity that we're helping companies to get this information on, we're also showing them how we're being respectful of employee privacy. So we've really been careful in recognizing that a certain level of information is useful to employers, and a certain level of information is also comforting for employees to know it's not intrusive to them. And all of the sensors on board our device are outward looking. So this is really about that environment around an employee, not what's happening internally. Nothing biometric. We're not trying to judge people's internal health here. We're trying to judge what does an employer have the ability to improve as far as the environment that they're asking people to work in and the type of work they're asking people to do. And are there things within the employer's control that they can do to make those things better?
I mean, that's really how you have to do it. Be honest, right? And I personally think that, wearable technology is going to be the future. It's going to continue to evolve. What do you think? Do you think it's going to become more commonplace in the workplace? But more common in the workplace?
Sure. Yeah. Right. I think it is, and it definitely has already begun to make such a big impact. And the more often that we encounter people who have already tried some sort of wearable is increasing. So we're getting fewer and fewer people who have never heard of wearable, people who have never tried wearable technology. It's oftentimes about finding the right wearable technology that gives the information and the helpful insights that you're looking for to make those positive changes. I definitely agree. In as much of an objective view as this can be taken, that wearable technology is definitely going to be a major player in how companies are making those decisions on how to monitor or alter the environments or the work people are doing. in their facilities so that they can be proactive and they can feel like they've got their risks understood or the opportunities opened up so that they can make those, again, positive changes, but also the things that help them develop a better safety culture and have better relationships and more transparency with the people that work there. And yeah, I think the more that we see that, the more it just confirms that we're heading further and further in that direction. And then beyond that, it's what you choose to do with it.
Well, everyone, make sure you check out the Make You Safe system. Their website has great videos and tons of product information that you can kind of get a base feel of. And I mean, I'm sure they would be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, there's a contact form on our site too. And if anyone would like to set up just a demo to see how this technology works, to ask questions, to see the dashboard of information that's collected and what it looks like as it comes through, which is also something we show employees too, is they want to know all this information is being collected. What does that look like when it comes through? How are you going to use it? And that's something we're always happy to demo for anybody who wants to see that. We can walk them through the dashboard. This is what it looks like when it comes in. This is how it's easily understood. And this is the way that you can derive action items from it. So happy to do that. Use the contact form on our site and we'll be in touch to set up a time to do kind of a personal walkthrough.
Excellent. And a link to that site will be down in the show notes that you can go check out. And I want to thank Brett for taking the time to talk to us today. It's great. And I'm really glad to see technology like this going into the feed and grain industries.
Stephen, thanks so much for the invite. It was wonderful that you reached out, and so glad to help spread the news of how wearable technology can make lives better for a lot of different people.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time.